And our first speaker this morning is the representative, the leadership, the queen of breastfeeding at the Kellogg Foundation. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Gail Christopher. We all know Gail. She's been at all our summits, and she's the Vice President of Program Strategy at the Kellogg Foundation and is behind the great wave of Kellogg's support for breastfeeding. Dr. Christopher. Do you want that mic okay?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Hi. Good morning. Well, that's a new one. I'll take it, though. Thank you very much. I want to begin my brief remarks by expressing my heartfelt appreciation to all of you. I like to think of the word appreciation and appreciating meaning to grow. And we are growing in our connections to one another, in our capacity to not only envision a different future, but to bring that vision into reality. And so, yes, it is the 6th annual. One day there won't be a need for such a thing, but we are certainly not ready to sit on our laurels or rest on our laurels and say we've accomplished all that there is to accomplish. As so eloquently stated by Dr. Lawrence, there is still a lot of work to do. And I want to talk a little bit, I always try to be a bit provocative in terms of thinking about what is it that there is yet for us to do. And I would venture to say that much of the work going forward is within local communities. We have the privilege now of having an authorizing environment at a national level. We can't ignore that work. People in America love dichotomies. You either do this or that. But when you're working for social change, you don't have the luxury of dichotomies. You have to do both and. And so we have to maintain the progress that we've made at the national level from a policy context, but we also have to recognize that what really happens on the ground in communities is the heart and soul of the work. And we have to figure out a way to better monitor and track and coordinate our understanding of that reality. So what is happening in federally qualified health centers as it relates to breastfeeding? What is happening in Head Start? Well, Head Start's a little late, but early Head Start and early infant care centers. I met with a commissioner of a major urban health department, and she was telling me that where they're getting the most traction in their work to encourage breastfeeding is in the small, licensed but not large, local community family health centers. And they have established a set of criteria for those health centers, for those child care centers or child care homes to be certified in some way in terms of being baby friendly. And so they have to meet a set of criteria, and what she was so excited about was the receptivity on the part of the child care providers who really want to do this. They want to encourage it, and they are very happy to do it. So we have to broaden our thinking in terms of beyond our medical community and colleagues and our health community and colleagues to ask ourselves, who are the other partners that need to be engaged in this work? And certainly those people who are providing care for children are at the top of that list. We've done a good job of engaging, and it's only good, it's not excellent. And in my family, if you brought a bee home, you weren't congratulated. You had to, so we've done a good job of engaging the employment community, but we really have to get to excellent. And when we do that, things will have changed dramatically. There won't just be opportunities for mothers to express milk, or there won't just be rooms for mothers to take a break and feed their babies. There will be paid maternity leave that is universally available. That's when we will have done an excellent job. And we have a long way to go. Now, I'm excited because the minimum wage issue is gaining traction across the board. And that suggests that there is an increasing understanding that the health and the well-being of the employees matters. We have to sort of leverage that movement And we have to get the concept of access to mother's milk as part of that broadening understanding of the health and the well-being of employees. So we need to work with the labor unions. We need to work with those folks that are engaged in that effort as well. So my challenge to you today, as you deliberate and come up with recommendations, think about those groups that you would never have considered before as potential allies in this work, because we have matured enough as a movement to do that, to broaden our conversations. I'll share with you briefly. We decided to name our work on breastfeeding as First Food, and one of the reasons we did that was because Kellogg had a 50-year history the foundation had a 50-year history in attempting to change the food system in this country so as to bring about more access to quality, locally grown food. And so there was a movement already there. And we felt if we brought First Food into that continuum, first food, early food, school food, and community food, we were already having a community that we could leverage. So now when the foodies of the world come together, and they do, we bring them together every other year, 700 plus strong, and it's an amazing convening. But now the idea of breastfeeding is part of that conversation. And it's amazing to hear the ideas. One of the speakers says, you want to talk about local food? You can't get much more local than a mother's milk. And so, again, an illustration of the need to broaden our thinking and find other partners and allies to push the agenda. But I couldn't be more excited and more appreciative of the work that has been done and the work that is being done. In the final analysis, though, as you broaden your sphere of influence, you're going to be influencing people to change not just how they think, but how they believe. Because once you really believe that this is critically important, you'll take the action that's necessary. And so I would leave you with the thoughts of Howard Gardner from Harvard about how we go about changing beliefs. We have found his theory to be quite applicable and practical. And the first step is reason, and we've got plenty of that. And research, oh my goodness. But there's new research that we need to do. We need to get into more of the behavioral dynamics of research. But the fact that now we have MRI studies to show that breastfeeding actually changes the brain of the developing infant, that's powerful. And that's going to, I think, drive a lot of motivation, if you will. After research, you need redescription. And that, I think, is where we may need to give ourselves more focus. You have to hear this story from multiple perspectives, and multiple perspectives in terms of diversity and ethnicity, multiple perspectives in terms of different facets of the healthcare system and the healthcare delivery system. When the story is told over and over again in the same way, you get dulled, if you will, to hearing it. So we've got to find that we redescribe this imperative from multiple points of view. And then you have to understand that there will be resistance. I am astounded that the school and nutrition providers are fighting the new standards for good quality food in our nation's schools, but they're getting help in that fight. And so resistance is part of the fight, and we have to anticipate it and be ready for it, but most importantly, not be stopped by it. Resonance, I think, is the ultimate space where we get real change in beliefs. And that's from the standpoint of relating emotionally. And that's where the stories are so powerful. We need to capture more stories, real personal experiences of what it means to breastfeed unsuccessfully and what it means to breastfeed successfully, and make sure those stories are more available. We need stories on StoryCorps. You know, what about the breastfeeding experience? What did it mean in the lives of children and mothers and families? But resonance, the emotional, affective area, is an important way to not only, it's an important benefit, of course, of the breastfeeding, but it's also an important way to change beliefs and ultimately behaviors. And then finally, rewards. We have to find ways to acknowledge and reward and applaud. We need to be giving prizes for companies that lead the way. We need to be recognizing and rewarding those who are moving this agenda forward. And then we end up with the importance of resources. Now, we've been a major funder in this area. Our goal over the next 5 years is to be one of many major funders. When we started the food work, the food systems change work at the foundation, we were out there. Now there are at least 35 foundations that have formed their own alliance, and they carry the work forward. That's our next challenge at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. The resources must be there to support this transformation that we are bringing about. As the video said, we're transforming back, if you will, to the future, in the sense that we want to go back to what is natural, and we want to create a future that embodies the best that we can possibly provide for all of our nation's children. And it is our low-income, impoverished, all too frequently children of color that are having the least access to this important resource. So make sure that every poverty, anti-poverty discussion, every public policy that's working on minimizing the impact of concentrated poverty, make sure those efforts include the importance, the primacy of access to mother's milk and breastfeeding as well. So I leave you this morning with a sense of hope and excitement that you will come out of this convening with a new set of recommendations that are going to take us to the next level. And I know that the people in this room are the right people to do that. So thank you very much.